I came with a very different approach than what they were used to, with setups, with everything. And there's in one test where my engineer did the opposite of what I asked for, just to double check if what I was saying was true or not. And then within 2 laps I came back in the pits and said, dude, what did you do on the car? It's not what. And from then on, then it went flawlessly. There were some harder moments with Patrick Head because he's hard-headed and he knows what he wants, but there was always so much respect that we could actually work together, and it was great. The car was super fast. It really was a great car to drive. We didn't improve the car as much until halfway through, and Ferrari really made some leaps, gigantic leaps. And at that point, we made leaps as well. And then we just kept working, both them and us. So it made it fun, but we never had a battle on the racetrack until that last race, until Jerez, which was really weird. Or we were never on the podium at the same time, for example. That was really strange. And that year, it was extreme from both sides, and that made it so much fun.
It was just amazing what happened in qualifying with Fritz and Jacques and Michael. To have 3 drivers recording the same lap time. And it wasn't like the 1950s where it was done down to a 1/10 of a second or a second. This was real stuff. And around Jerez as well, there were enough corners to differentiate between cars and drivers at that level of degree, but it happened.
When I came then in and I looked on the computer, I couldn't believe myself that it was exactly the same time. It proves that competition is on a very high level and can't be closer than that, obviously.
It was just going to be one of those Sundays. You didn't know what was going to happen. You couldn't have had a better palette on which to paint this final round of the championship.
You know, if Schumacher finishes in front of Villeneuve, he will be champion. And if Villeneuve in front of Schumacher, he will be champion.
Schumacher or Villeneuve?
Schumacher, definitely.
Villeneuve.
Everybody wanted to see you and Villeneuve in the front row.
Yeah, correct. There we are.
You happy?
Sure.
How high would you rate the percentage of an accident?
Good question.
I think even the rest want to see a straight fight between Jacques and myself, and that's what I want to see. I mean, I want to win the race, and I want to win that way the championship, and not by any kind of accident or whatever. That's not my target.
What do you think will be the key to victory here?
Well, first of all, not being taken off. That will be very important. And then just being fast, being quicker than Michael, that's all.
Oh, I'd say he's in pretty punchy shape. He's confident.
And Michael was 1 point ahead of Jacques. Michael was, fantastic driver, had a fantastic career, but there was that side to him which wasn't quite the sportsman.
We are racing. I mean, you cannot predict what is going to happen, but we want to fight on the circuit as good as possible and as fair as possible. That's the intention.
When you want to win a championship, it takes more than just driving fast.
There'd been some gamesmanship going on during the race between ourselves and Williams, and I seem to remember the Williams second driver was blocking us. I mean, I'm not complaining because we were masters at that, so don't get me wrong.
Jacques Villeneuve, Michael. last Grand Prix in Jerez. They had a massive fight. You know, Michael has to win.
The last thing Michael wanted to see was a closing gap, the gap behind getting smaller and smaller with Jacques catching him. And Jacques in a position to catch him under brakes.
I think we had a better car, but in the end, Michael moved over on Jacques and tried to knock him off.
He's putting the car where it should be, and Michael just shuts the door on him.
And Jacques went through, and it was a mistake by Michael. He shouldn't have done it.
Michael went off. Jacques was able to continue, but I think Jacques understood that way. It's no point to push anymore. And I think he was not sure anymore if the car was okay because they touched.
That was, you know, a bit cynical looking at it, as had been the end of the championship at 94 with Damon in Adelaide. And quite clearly, Michael, when Jacques challenged him at Jerez, Michael decided to take him out.
Interestingly, when he came back in the pits, he had a completely different mental view of what had happened. And it wasn't until he saw the TV he realized what had really happened. And I think, again, you know, you're in the cockpit, you've got the helmet on, things are happening around you, you act instinctively. And Michael's final failure mode was to act instinctively to defend the position. He was so competitive, that's what he did. And he came back to the pits and he was telling us we had to get Villeneuve disqualified and all the rest of it. I said, Michael, you really need to look at the TV because it doesn't look that way, I'm afraid. And he looked and he went quiet and realized that things hadn't been quite how he thought they were from the cockpit.
Jacques was in truth very lucky because that impact on the car broke the battery mounting on which the car depended, very small battery. And when the car finished, we found that it was hanging by its electrical wires. The bracket that mounted it was completely broken.
I braked on the maximum and he braked even later, which, as I said, with this braking point, I wouldn't have made the corner and he wouldn't have made the corner.
You know, I couldn't go more on the inside. I was actually on the grass. You know, either Michael had his eyes closed or somehow his hands slid on the steering or something.
Quite honest, I probably would have done the same. That's about racing.
It was interesting that Michael spent a lot of time with Jacques in the motorhome, and they were together hanging out. And Michael was very relaxed and very on top of his life and what would happen that day. And I think in that sense, it became a racing sporting incident as distinct from something bigger than that was going to affect Formula One or be bigger than the individuals of Formula One. Where I think I say that in the context of Et and Alain, where it did get to that point. I think it was contained because Michael kind of did a pretty good job after the race.